Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, February 14th, 2018 to order. Can we have a roll call, please? Mr. Alexandrovich.
Yes. Mrs. Witkowski.
Here.
Mr. Gamble.
Here.
Mr. Nielsen.
Here.
Mrs. Evans.
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mrs. Larson.
Here.
And I am here.
Thank you. And the meeting has been properly posted. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3 on the agenda is community comment. Would anyone in the audience like to make a comment tonight? Any comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 4, approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Witkowski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nielsen. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item 5 is school board announcements. Do we have any announcements?
Yes, the Education Foundation has their Style for Scholarship event next Thursday, February 22nd at 3 Cellars. You can check the website to get your tickets. And there's 16 district teachers participating as models and many community partners. So it sounds like a fun event.
We have a model here, don't we? Is that you?
I had my fitting this afternoon.
Any other announcements? I just want to announce to the board that I had a few board members say they wanted to be on the coherence committee, the ad hoc committee, and then after some discussion, some board members withdrew, and so the coherence ad hoc committee will be Mrs. Witkowski and myself. So that's all the announcements then, and we'll move on to school board calendar. We have regular board meeting on Wednesday, February 28th, 2018, here at the Education and Community Center at 6 o'clock p.m., and a regular board meeting Wednesday, March 14th, here at the ECC at 6 o'clock p.m. Item 7, reports and presentations. We have the Pleasant View Elementary School presentation, and we have Mr. Jamie Feckler here to start us off. Welcome.
And a team.
So first of all, I'd like to thank you for having us here. I see we have a light agenda tonight, so we're going to go about 2 hours, if that's all right. So it's going to make my teachers more and more nervous here. So, no, thank you for having us, and we have some things to share about conferring, and you've heard a little bit about the workshop model from some of the other buildings earlier this year, and so we want to zero in on one aspect of the workshop model. And so with me, to my right, I have Tracy Kahn, third grade teacher with us, and also Kelly Schultz, a kindergarten teacher. And in our audience, we have Maxwell Charwitz, a kindergartner with us at Pleasant View, and AJ Cromie, a third grader with us at PV. So they'll be coming up a little bit later to share about their experience within the setting of student conferencing. So with that, I'd like to take you back a little bit. Think about when you began to ride a bike, or if you have a child that you took through those first steps of sending them off and seeing them successfully ride. Well, they have a lot of unsuccessful attempts, and you're focusing in on what type of feedback to give them, right? You want to give them the right feedback, you want to give them positive feedback around it, and you want to teach them, not the riding. So you want to teach the rider and not the writing. Much in the same way we focus in the workshop model to teach the writer and not the writing itself. And the way that we give feedback to students is critical in how much they can grow themselves as a writer. So with that, there are a couple of parts of conferring that we're going to highlight tonight for you. We're going to define these. We're also going to give you some video examples from some of our students that we have behind us, and also some students who are at Pleasant View not with us tonight. And we're going to have teachers kind of share a little bit about those experiences. And we're going to have a part of this time to talk about researching the writing, complementing the writer, and then also teaching the writer those next steps. But before I go any further, I want to pass out some Post-its to you so you can be a part of this experience with us. So you each have a couple of Post-its. One Post-it you're going to use to jot some notes down, and I'll tell you when you can start to highlight some of those things in the presentation. And then at the very end, you're going to have an opportunity to write down what you learned or take away from the presentation that you can take with you. I know many of the board members are doing school visits, and so this might be something that you can take with you on your school visit so that you can be looking for something that you learned tonight in that as an opportunity for you. So with that, this is the first opportunity for you. We're going to talk about the research phase first. And what I want you to do is I'm just going to read that quote out loud, and I want you to jot down something on one of those Post-its that stands out to you. It could be a word or it could be a phrase. So the teacher begins by noticing and naming what the child is intending to do and has done in their writing. So this is the first part of that student conference. So take a look at that and jot something down. So with the research phase, I'm going to have our teachers just explain what you're going to be seeing, and then we'll show a short video clip from a couple of our students.
So during the research phase, it's really just a time for us to ask them, how are things going? Usually they say good, or sometimes if they're having an issue, they'll let us know. But it's a chance for them to start to share their writing, which is what you'll see from the third grade student, AJ, over here. And during that time, we're not just sitting there listening. We're actually having lots of work going on in our mind. We're thinking, okay, what are they doing really well on? What can we tell them, what kind of compliment can we give them? But we're also trying to think, okay, what can they work on that we can push them forward as a writer? So that all takes place in about a minute. And so lots of thinking is going on in our minds while that student is kind of just letting us know how things are going.
All right, and what's coming around right now is a student sample of their writing. If you want to explain that, and there's also a tool that you have with that, if you want to just quickly explain that as they're passing it.
Okay, and so the writing that you're going to see is, we just started a unit. It was a literary essay on characters that they're reading about. So what you're seeing is just the start of the unit, so there wasn't much there. So that really pushes us to think, okay, what kind of compliment can we give and where can we push them forward, even though they haven't started much at this point. And the tools are there to help them to see where they are at the moment and where they can grow. And we use the 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, more like a rating. So it's almost like a video game. Like, how can you level yourself up from a 2 to a 3? So they're able to see where they're going, where they are right now. That's what you're seeing of it.
There we go.
How's it going, AJ?
Good.
Good. What are you working on?
Once you started talking about the lead, because I didn't really know how to do it with this, I was going to start doing that.
Oh,
And I was
okay.
thinking about how to start it.
Okay. So, who are you writing about?
Elizabeth and Paper Big Princess.
Good character. Okay. So, do you want to read a little bit to me, just so I see what you have so far?
In the book Paper Big Princess, Elizabeth is fearless because in the text it said she stuck her head in the dragon's ear and shouted as loud as she could.
I'm going to shift to
In kindergarten, we're working on how-to writing, so the kids are learning how to write books to teach people things. And so it's a really exciting time for kindergarten because the one thing that we really push for kindergartners is they choose what they want to write about. So it's what they're interested in, it's what they love, it's always a choice for them. And so Max is writing a how-to book on how to watch Team Hot Wheels. So he's going to teach you all about how to get ready to watch that TV show. And so while I'm doing the research, I'm listening, and I'm a Post-it note teacher who I write down a lot of things on Post-it notes as I'm working with the child for myself and for them. So I'll write down a lot of strengths that I see Max using in his writing, and then I'll focus on one tip that I want to give him. So the research is all about listening for me.
Hey Max, how's it going?
Good.
What are you working on today?
Writing.
Can you read it to me?
Yep. How to watch Team Hobbs. Step 1. You get your PJs on. Step 2. You go down the stairs. Step 3. You watch TV.
All right, as we move on to the compliment part of the conference, a good compliment applies not only to today's work, but also to tomorrow's work, and it's centered on new learning. So right now, I'd like you to take a look at that quote, and again, jot down something that stands out to you about the compliment phase. We're going to move to the compliment.
Okay. So the compliment is a really big part of the conference. It kind of, I think, sets the tone for how the entire conference is going to go. So it's I think one of the most fun parts of the conference because you really get to build the student up. So here I have a student who was actually working on one of the same things that AJ was working on. He was working on a literary essay. And you actually have the piece in front of you. And he wasn't too far yet, but I was able to pick up a few things that he had done really well. And something that I want you to just watch when you're looking at the video is like how their faces light up when you give them that compliment. Because no matter what it is that they've written, you can always find something that they're doing well on. So they get really excited, and I think that, like I said, it sets the tone, and it really makes them want to push themselves further when you do give them that tip.
Can I give you a compliment?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You did a great job writing this introduction, and the part that I was very impressed by was this part down here. You know what that part's called? Your thesis. Your thesis was great, and it was very clear and to the point. I thought you did a wonderful job, because now as a reader, I can tell what your whole piece is going to be about. And you nailed it on those character traits. So he changed from, you said, a jealous character.
Yeah, to a generous and kind-hearted person or character.
That was great. I couldn't have worded it any better myself. High five.
And for kindergarten, it's very similar. You want to give them that compliment. One thing as a teacher that I do is I try to give it loudly so other kids around the classroom can hear. So it's not just for him and me, it's for any kid that's chiming in at that moment, because often I'll say it and then I'll see another kid go, try to do it right away because they saw me give a compliment to another child that they naturally want to do that in their own writing.
Max, that was an awesome how-to book on how to watch the Hot Wheels TV show, wasn't it? I know exactly what to do. You told me every step of what I need to do in order to watch that TV show, which makes it a great how-to book. You've been working really hard on writing how-to books, haven't you? Great job, Max.
All right, and the last part of the student conference is the teach part. And children can become active agents of their own writing development. So again, take a few seconds to jot down a word or a phrase that stands out to you.
one aspect of the teach is that it's very, very focused. You know, as you're listening to during the research, you may be thinking of a few areas that you could move them forward in, but it's really important to pick the one that you think is going to benefit them the most at the time and in future writing pieces. And AJ, he was working again on the literary essay. He was working on a character from the Paper Bag Princess, and he had a really great thesis. So we were working on pushing him forward and supporting that thesis with examples from the book. So we just like to make it really focused so that the goal is really attainable and they feel successful.
So you have a trait that you're writing about. You're writing about that she is fearless, okay? And you have a really good example here. Well, opinion writers, when they are trying to convince their audience, look what they need to do.
Use specific examples.
Yes, they need to use specific examples, and they need to choose reasons that are really important to the reader. So we want to really go through the text and we want to find specific examples, okay? So when was another time that she showed that she was really fearless? Like, this dragon didn't scare her. Even though it would have scared a normal person, he didn't scare her. And
He burned out 54s with his fire.
okay, so he can burn down 50 forests. And what did she continue to do?
She's the one after him.
She still went after him. Why would that be brave for somebody to go after a dragon that can burn down 50 forests?
Because a princess usually wouldn't do that, or a regular person wouldn't do that.
So explain that to the reader. And I think that 50 forests is a great example.
And that just shows some of the things that he had added to his writing.
And for Max, the teach is very similar. I'm going to pick one tip that I want to give him, and I'm going to make sure that we very clearly state it. And I also write it on a post-it note for him to put inside of his book so he can look at and see. And with kindergartners, I like to use a lot of pictures, like happy faces or sad faces of what we want to see and what we don't want to see in writing. And so I put it right in there. You'll see that happen, and then they keep that with them in their toolkit as writers.
So Max, you've been working so hard. I'm going to give you a quick tip, okay? And we even talked about this on our editing checklist over here. And I'm going to leave you with this tip. One thing I want you to do as a writer is always check and make sure that your letters are lowercase letters, like we see the A, B, and C here. I'm going to put this right on this page, and I want you to check and see if there's any letters that you can fix up, okay?
All right, so we're going to shift to why is conferring important to the teacher. So you've heard a little bit from them, from Kelly and from Tracy, and so what makes it important to you?
I'll start first again. We'll just go in the same order. You know, during your lesson, you can pick up on how the kids are doing, but you don't get that individualized focus time. And so during conferring, you really get that time to meet with the student, not just talk about writing, but I mean, you're actually making a connection with them. You're getting to know them as a writer and as a person. They start to feel comfortable with you. They, want to accept your feedback. They want to push themselves, use the tips that you're giving them, and you're just really able to see the growth, because when you set a goal and you meet with them again, you can see the work that they've done when you meet back up with them again. So I think it's just that individualized time that's really, really important to push them forward and to grow them as a writer.
And growth is a huge thing for me as well. In kindergarten, we're taking them from 0 to 100 in my mind, because they're coming in, some of them having zero experience in writing, and it's just amazing to be able to confer with them and see them grow as a writer. And when I can confer with them, I'm able to give them all those compliments to make sure I'm building their self-esteem as a writer, and that they love school is hugely important to me. So there's so many things for conferring that are amazing that I can't even begin to talk about, but it's just growth is number one.
So now we get to hear from our students,
Yay.
the most important part. All right, so Maxwell, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you enjoy most about writing? Go ahead. partner time? Why do you like partner time?
Because I get to have somebody writing with me.
And then, how have you grown as a writer this year?
I used to write zigzags and I thought that was cool. But now I write real stories.
Awesome. That's great to hear. That's great. That's so awesome. So you feel pretty good about that, right? You should. Awesome. So AJ, what about you? What do you enjoy most about writing? So you jotted some notes down there.
That Miss Khan doesn't take the whole time with like the lessons. She gives us enough time to write.
That's good. And then, how have you grown as a writer this year?
Well, I didn't even know how to do a conclusion, but then she taught me how.
Very good. Very good. How does that make you feel?
Happy.
Pretty good. Pretty good. We can see that from the videos too. So thank you guys. Thanks for sharing. All right. Good job, you guys. So our last question of the night comes back to you. What did you learn about conferring? So you have that second post-it to jot something down of what you learned tonight that you can take away with you. And then thank you for having us.
So thank you to Max and AJ for sharing your writing with us and your videos, and for bringing your teachers with you today to share. And we want to wish you a happy Valentine's Day, and so make sure you get some cookies when you leave over there. And thank you, Mr. Feckler. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to item 7B, the technology report, with Mrs. Luann Zielinski. Hi.
Tough act to follow.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's a tough act to follow.
I know, that was going to be my opening statement here. I don't know I can top a kindergartner and a third grader, which is why we're all here. So, well, thanks for having me tonight to give you an update where we're at with some projects and things that we're doing with technology. The report is in your documents to follow along with if you have that available to you. Not as cute as kindergartners and third graders, but each time I've come to do a report, I always want to highlight some of our staff that does support the technology arena. So there's some pictures. I tasked our library ITL, Information Technology Literacy aides, to capture a selfie, because I just thought it would be fun, and they were up for the challenge. Some of them, I think it was Pleasant View, even did some photoshopping of Hello from PV in the background. You may not be able to see it. So, but I wanted to share with you their important role in the district. They are our kind of first line of support to the students and the staff as it relates to the Chromebooks. So if you ever get a chance when you're in the buildings to stop in and see the employees who work in that arena, especially at the high school, they are busy all day long, not because just I forgot my charger, this isn't working the way it's supposed to be, and they are our first line of support for all those individuals. So as we look at almost 4,000 Chromebooks in the district, they are the ones who do that first line of help and support for each of those, for our students. So very important role that they play, not just Chromebooks, they're also facilitating the library, helping kids find books and some of those paper resources as well. So all encompassing, they are an integral part of our success with having Chromebooks in the hands of all of our students in grades 5 through 12. I want to just update you on a couple of upcoming infrastructure projects. Technology is always changing, as we know, and a couple of things that'll be coming in the next year and a half-ish, I would say, as we get ready for the new middle school. We'll couple some of these projects with that. Will be to update our wireless infrastructure at a couple of, probably at the high school, our infrastructure, and then also the high school and the new middle school. As you know, there's always new technology, so wireless Wave 2, AC Wave 2 is out, and there's another version coming, even if it's to be faster and better, about the time the middle school is going to open up. So we're going to have to kind of gamble on which direction we want to head, so we're doing some research now to figure out what is our best avenue, and we really haven't updated our wireless infrastructure since, I think, its original inception, maybe a couple of updates. So it's due to kind of move us to that next piece. And I think the technology's at a point right now where there's some new features that we can take advantage of that makes it worthwhile to invest in and make those changes. The new wireless will have a gigabit in terms of speed, and it's going to have what they call multi-user concurrent connections versus a single connection. So thinking about multiple users being able to not have to share the bandwidth as much as we currently do. So a couple of pieces that I think will improve our speed of performance as we get more and more devices on our systems. The second area is what we call a SAN, which is think about it as a big storage area. This is where all of our servers are stored, and while we don't have I think not as many, we still probably have about 32 servers out there that do different functions, from our phone system to deployment of our virus software to file storage, our wireless servers, all those pieces. So while maybe not as much on the file storage arena as we use more and more Google Docs and Google Files stored in the cloud, we still have a lot of other services that we do provide. And those devices are going out of what we end of life by the vendor. So while they still work and they still function, soon we won't be able to get any support on them if something would fail, and there's just too much critical information and servers and things on there to do that. So we're looking at what we will be doing to make that move and update coming here this summer. Next one is just access to technology besides the Chromebooks and the iPads and some of those pieces. We haven't done a total refresh of anything related to our projection units or our smart boards. And some of those pieces, we're starting to see our projection units, which are almost 10 years old, starting to changing out the bulb in them is not fixing the image on the screen. They're really getting dark, and some of those other pieces. So I'm in the process of gathering some information right now to develop a plan to start replacing those. We've been replacing them one by one as they come, but I think we're to that point where we need to really take a look and take a step back and do a major overhaul. We'll probably still do it as needed, but depending on how many are needed at each building. And we may look at a different model for what that might look like, as we are looking at the new middle school of putting in flat panel displays versus projection units, where you have no bulbs to have to replace. The clarity of those displays is much higher. We have to probably have at home, right, your 4000K or what have you displays that you might have at home is much better quality than what we can get off of a projection unit with less maintenance costs. So we'll be looking at putting that plan together, and that'll be some driving factors that we'll be taking a look at as we look at updating that peripheral equipment in the buildings. And then kind of also related to Chromebooks again, interestingly, business has decided that they like Chromebooks too, and they're not just for education anymore. And so you're starting to see a change in the Chromebook industry where they're trying to build, if you call it high-end Chromebooks, so to speak, and then maybe lower-end ones that education has tended to purchase. And as a part of that process, the 13-inch devices that we've been purchasing, which is kind of a standard laptop size, they've raised the prices on pretty significantly, or they went to a 14-inch. So probably starting this fall, when we purchase new devices for grades 5 and 9, which we do every year to give them their device for the next 4 years, we'll be moving to a smaller 11-inch screen. So still big enough to do all of our assessments on, still I think kids are doing a lot of things on their phones anyway. They probably won't even notice the difference in screen size, but it's a change that we'll be making this coming school year. The work to our fiber build to WISCNet is still in progress, and the anticipated timeline is to have that done by the end of July. So once the ground thaws again and they can get back in the ground and continue that work, we should have that connection made, and we'll be switching over to WISCNet this summer. I don't have a lot to report on the technology related to the Forest Park yet, because of most of the work has been on the design phase, and we're just in the process now of starting to work on the installation piece of that. As you see the walls go up, and the infrastructure parts will be starting to go in from making sure we have all the cabling and all the kind of behind the scenes pieces, and then we'll start talking about if there's anything above and beyond that in terms of what specific flat panel display are we going to put in each room, and those things are yet to come in terms of the very specific details related to that project.
Do you have questions now or later?
No.
Sure. Go ahead now.
I'm just wondering, with the new Forest Park Middle School, are we changing how many cameras we're putting in there? Is it going to be the same, or are we We're doing that kind of technology, camera.
Video, like surveillance recording
Right.
cameras. There will be cameras in the building. They, in terms of the exact numbers, I don't have those off of the top of my head.
But is it like a standard, every hallway? I don't know, do you have standards at all? I'm not even really familiar with them.
Yeah, I don't know if we have a standard necessarily even in our current schools, that they're not in every single hallway. It's about where are those least visible spaces or that we need to have access to images for potential.
And it's all digital Wi-Fi stored somewhere in a,
Yes,
retrievable.
these cameras will be on our network. It's all stored digitally on a server.
and it's consistent across the district, or?
We have a mixture of some that are, say, previous generations that are not digital, and then the new stuff that we are putting in is digital.
Okay, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is, or on the document, talks about an event that we're going to be putting together in April. So if you're interested in joining us that night, this came about as called Growing Up Digital. This came about as we have more technology, we're starting to see more challenges with things happening in schools, that we felt there was a need to educate and help everyone grow a little bit in the knowledge and expertise around what kids are experiencing as they're growing up, and what you as parents or as community members are experiencing as kids have a technology or a piece of device in their hands at all times. And this has been a collaborative effort with myself and Catherine Reed from our student services and counseling arena, as well as our several people from our high school and a couple of our school psychs. Not that it's necessarily a secondary only event. And we wanted to kind of kick this off with, we need to work together. We need to help raise parent awareness. We need to help raise teacher awareness. We need to help raise student awareness. And this is kind of the first step in that process, is to offer this event. I don't have a lot of details yet. What I can tell you is that we were working with the Franklin Police Department. They will be having someone do a part of the presentation that night on internet safety and the things that they're seeing from a law enforcement standpoint. And a second presenter that we don't have identified yet is going to talk more on the social emotional side, the additional stress that students are feeling, the anxiety, the impact social media is having in terms of some of the counseling side of it, and what kids are seeing, or what they're seeing as it relates to students and some of those pieces, as well as myself and the high school administration team will be there. We'll talk about what they're seeing kind of spill over into the school day and the impact that it's having on learning when things happen outside of school in a social media type scenario, come to school, they see those persons that they thought they were talking to, and maybe things explode at school, and some of those challenges that they're seeing, and how we can all work together with that. So that's kind of the general format for what that night will be, with some question answered. We don't have all the answers. This is really about what is research is telling us. Here's where we're at, and what can we all do as a school community to make educated decisions and think about what our kids are doing, and maybe what we're making choices as parents, as well as what we're doing as a school community to support those kids. And I think you guys will find it all interesting. If you've ever sat in on those presentations before, I don't think we've done one in this district for quite some time. Maybe once the middle school did a few years ago, I think we were talking. But many communities have been offering these types of events to help bring that awareness. So you can check out, we have a Facebook page if you want to follow that. You can like that page, as well as a Growing Up Digital website. We're going to be putting some resources for parents and community members every week in the school newsletters up until the time of the event. So last week was on social media. This week is going to be about sleep and technology, and the impact or negative impact that having your phone by your bed all night has on your sleep at night for those kids. So hopefully you'll find those topics of interest as we move along, and kind of raise awareness of things that maybe we can do differently to all be a better balance, is what I like to call it. Technology is not going to go away. It's not bad, but we need maybe a different balance because of some of the negative impacts that it's having if it's overused with kids. And then lastly on the docket is the state has come out with some new information technology literacy standards. So we have standards in every content area, as you know. There's new standards that they've updated. They hadn't been updated, I guess, been like 15 years since they updated the information technology literacy standards. So those just came out, and we'll be taking a look at those and doing a review of what are we already doing that's on in those new documents, what do we want to be doing in terms of direct instruction with kids, or tying them into and integrating them into our content areas. So a lot of the literacy standards you'll see in the documents, you will also find in like the English language arts standards, you may find in some of the personalized learning pieces, and we don't need to do it multiple places, but where can we intertwine some of those different standards throughout our curricular areas. So we'll be taking a look at where that makes sense to integrate those. I've been always a believer, don't teach those in isolation, you gotta teach them within the context of where they're meant to be.
I took a look at those standards, and it said they were going to take a second look at them in 2023. It wasn't clear that they just updated them. I didn't quite understand that. Do you know what they're doing in 2023?
No, I haven't seen that 2023 piece.
Because I thought we adopted them in 2017, correct?
We have not adopted, well, I don't know in general, these specific standards, or are you talking?
Well,
I'm not sure what we adopted officially. These just came out, so we haven't had any kind of official adoption.
we approved our plan that went to DPI with a link.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And these were not done yet when that plan
Okay. Yeah,
went to.
it was really hard to understand what they were referring to with the 2023.
Yeah.
It was,
They've really reworked these standards around, it's not just about technology, it's not about learning how to operate the equipment, it's more about problem solving, communication skills, and using the tools and technology, digital citizenship, it's more on that line.
and then, when you were here in July 2017, you mentioned you were doing an audit of your department. You were going to do you said in 2017, July, you were going to do an audit this year.
Yeah.
Did you find anything in your area? You said you were going to identify any areas that may need improvement. Did you get to that audit?
Yeah, so the audit I think you're referencing was, we talked about doing a security audit, and that has not occurred yet. Other than gathering some pieces about security audits, can go from some basic things all the way to some really high level things. And the technology coordinator group within CISA 1 is working right now on kind of identifying where we can get the biggest bang for our buck, so to speak, on doing an audit of those resources. So they're going to be doing some training with my IT guys. That's where we're starting with that, as well as then you bring in somebody from the outside to basically try to hack your network, more or less, to see where they can get to and how they can infiltrate into your network and help you figure out maybe there's holes that should be.
Okay. And the other thing that you had mentioned was nursing was going to move to a digital medication.
Yes, that's in progress. They had some initial screens, if you will, and the nurses are in the process of testing those screens to make sure that everything is the way they would like it to be, and then we'll start rolling it out to our health room aides this year.
Okay. And then I am a liaison at Country Dale, and 2 different days that I was there, I did get to see the interaction of students with the information technology literacy aides, and there was a lot of interaction. They were really busy, and it was pretty impressive to see that. So, yeah, they do a good job.
Thank you.
And can I ask, so are we pretty set with budget-wise as far as our level of expenditures then? Are there any other big pushes that we'd be investing in now that we have one-to-one implemented and we have the Wi-Fi going in? Are we pretty stable in terms of the expenditures that are needed to sustain this effort going forward?
Yeah, I think we're in good shape to sustain. Everything is on a kind of rotating basis, if you will, so that kind of balances out each year of different needs as each year.
And support is adequate then, in terms of staffing?
Right now, we're doing good with staffing, and they're able to keep up with things in a timely manner, so.
Okay, thank you.
So when we moved over to the Google structure and the emails and the cloud storage and everything, there's still backup at our server level from all the stuff that's in the cloud too?
Yeah,
How is that?
yes.
Yeah.
So a couple of multiple layers of backup. So Google has their own backup. We have chosen to not only trust Google, but have a secondary backup. It's backing up Google items, so to speak, not locally. That's all cloud hosted. And then we have any internal files. So if I have a Microsoft Office, Microsoft Word document, or other documents, that's stored in our file servers here, as well as that is getting backed up. So multiple layers. I guess I always feel like you can never have too many copies of things, because it's always that one critical piece that seems to be a need for at some point in time.
Yeah, well, I just know you get everything up in the cloud, and so I'll make a copy of that, I'll save it. Well, you're saving it in the cloud a lot of times, and so
Yeah.
I knew we had backup, I just wasn't sure of the different layers that you
Yeah,
had.
we're really lucky, and as an education institution, that Google provides that backup for free, and we have had to use it for multiple
Yeah.
reasons to be able to go back and pull some things that accidentally get deleted, especially as shared documents get shared amongst multiple people and things accidentally disappear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Item 7C is the annual school counselors report, and we have Mrs. Catherine Reed, and I see all our counselors here today.
The glasses just to see that. Hello, everyone. So how's the volume? Can you hear me? Okay, great. I will leave it there. So thanks. My name's Catherine Reed. I'm School Counseling Program System Specialist with the district, and I'm here to give you an update on the school counseling program this year. I'm joined by our other counselors, Bernadette Van Lith from the middle school, our high school counselors, Diane Gilroy, Keith Decker, and our two new counselors, Amy Ost and Mandy Cluck. Mindy Greco from the middle school is not able to be here tonight. She really wanted to be, but needed to be at home with her family. So we're here to share some information about the counseling program in Franklin. Last week, the American School Counselor Association celebrated National School Counseling Week. They promoted the theme, Helping Students Reach for the Stars, so we have organized our information along that theme. School counseling involves working with all students. Each of the counselors in the district is specially trained to work with individuals, and we're bound by professional ethics to know about the needs of our students and to advocate on behalf of them. In Franklin, counselors are fortunate to have incredible teaching staff and administrators who support our work, and you saw some of the amazing teaching that goes on in the district. At a really young age, students begin to consider their dreams for the future. In order to reach for the stars, students need to see the connection between their schoolwork and the work that they may do in the future. The counseling model provides a holistic approach to preparing students. We work in 3 domains: academic, personal social, and the career domain. A major part of our work is devoted to assisting all students in becoming academically prepared. Counselors also recognize that students need employability skills and social emotional skills alongside their academic habits and skills. Students have outstanding academic opportunities in our district. They experience the foundation of an excellent education in every classroom. In addition to that academic foundation, all students need skills that prepare them to work with others in their community. In an economy that is rapidly changing,
and a world that will have unique demands and opportunities. We want to help all of our students to reach for the stars, to be ready with the knowledge, habits, and skills they need to make their vision real. Education and school counseling in particular help students to safely prepare and navigate that journey. School counselors in Franklin work with individual students, classrooms, through building-wide efforts and district-wide events to support students to graduate with the knowledge, skills, and habits they need to do this. Over the past 2 years, the district has engaged in an implementation of an Education for Employment plan, which incorporates our academic and career planning work. That work continues this year with the implementation of ACP across the district. Academic and career planning is a student-driven ongoing process that actively engages students in developing an understanding of themselves, connecting that to their individual goals, to help them prepare a personal plan for their future. That plan is a product that documents the research that they've done, the learning experiences that they've accumulated, their assessment results, their financial plans, post-secondary plans, and their record of their readiness skills. While it's not really only counselor work, academic and career planning, a lot of the efforts of school counselors involve planning and preparation for the future. This year, some of the Education for Employment work will continue to investigate the indicators that students need to have, the experiences that help them to be prepared, and the mechanisms for gaining those experiences and skills to be ultimately successful. Alongside the implementation of academic and career planning, the district is involved in a year of study of social emotional learning. We also know that our students have social emotional skills that contribute to their readiness after they leave our doors. So as part of this study, counselors and other stakeholders in the district will be identifying those indicators of readiness and the mechanisms by which students become ready for learning and working. In addition to these two main areas, counselors are participating in a number of other district and building level committees, including personalized learning, the high school systems of support team, the middle school work group, and the Growing Up Digital committee that you heard Luann Zielinski talk about. A little bit more about the academic and career planning work that school counselors are involved in. We support the academic and career planning work being done across the district in a variety of ways. At the district level, students and staff have been provided with some resources around the career cruising tool that students and parents can use to support students' academic and career planning work. Counselors work with staff and members of the community to create the Pathways to Your Future night, which I think many of you were able to attend. Thank you for coming. That was our attempt to build something new that would inspire 8th grade through 12th grade students and their families to discover that there are multiple pathways to successful futures. Currently, the Education for Employment work involves identifying and articulating pathways that are aligned to state and local needs and the interests of our students. Counselors also work in our community with our community experience coordinator to increase exposure to career information, especially at the middle school this year. We are working to bring in speakers in the Career Cafe program so that students have some exposure to career areas and professionals in our community. Staff at the high school during Academic and Career Planning Week helps students to become familiar with the courses in our building, experiences, and the pathways that they can take as high school students. We are interested in how our students experience and perceive academic career planning in Franklin, and we recently held a couple of really important feedback sessions with some students and got their impressions and perceptions about academic and career planning in the and at the high school specifically. So we will be using that feedback and reflecting on our own curriculum to further what we are doing with them to help them have the most meaningful experiences that we can provide. Counselors do provide regular instruction to all students designed to help them with their future planning. So our job now is to extend that learning beyond gathering information and to creating plans where students really have an opportunity to have conversations with counselors and other adults and evaluate those options and really make sure they're making excellent decisions. The result is that all students in grades 6 through 12 will have a plan, co-developed with their parents, teachers, counselors, with flexibility built in based on high-quality research, and most importantly, tested with a variety of learning and work-based experiences that help them to know what they need to do in order to reach their goals. Part of, an important part of the work that counselors do is facilitate transition conferencing 3 times in a student's career. In addition to many individual conversations and classroom lessons and other kinds of opportunities, students do have an opportunity to put their plan together in a presentation and synthesize some of that information and present that. At the 6th grade level, they visit the middle school currently at the end of or middle of May and present their academic and career plan. They are showing what they're interested in, their strengths as a learner, what they're looking forward to, and how they plan to get involved at the middle school level. Similarly, the middle school students in 8th grade come up to the high school in a transition event and learn about the high school and also bring what they are all about and share that with important adults, mentoring adults at the high school, and have a chance to get a little feedback about that and have our high school folks learn about their upcoming freshman class. And finally, in the high school, our students each have a conference, an individual conference with their parent, guardian, and their school counselor, and it's an important touch point time for planning the end of high school and preparing for after high school. Every year we want to share the impact of our counseling program. We could continue to list all the activities that counselors are involved in, but that would take a little while. The work that counselors are involved in is designed to make Franklin a better place for students to learn, and our goals and data should support that. In the elementary school counseling program, which has undergone a number of changes in the last 8 years, currently it's part of my role as the program specialist to work in 5th and 6th grade, teaching students bullying prevention and academic and career planning lessons. I'm also supporting a couple of smaller teams at the elementary level to investigate the use of restorative practices, which they want to begin to use in some of their behavior issue, addressing negative behaviors and building positive culture. This is an example of some of the data we collect around some of the lessons. In 5th and 6th grade, students learn about different types of bullying, the effect and impact of bullying on others, and how to take initiative in dealing with bullying situations. The coping and advocacy skills are part of that. So this represents, the learning that students were able to accomplish as a result of the lesson, and maybe more importantly, that their attitudes toward bullying prevention improved after having a lesson on bullying prevention. Our middle school last year set goals in several areas, including climate and safety and social emotional development. Students learned to advocate for themselves and others. The data shows an increase in student knowledge of bullying and their ability to respond to it. Our middle school counselors also saw a trend and took action to intervene with students who are new to Franklin Public Schools. They were able to see through the data that some of the students that were new to the school district had additional health room visits and office discipline referrals. So they took a look at that group of students and created a program for students new to the school to give them a greater sense of connection, improve relationships with adults, resulting in significant decrease in time out of class. This year, at the middle school level, their goals involve social emotional learning, supporting the building-wide goal to increase student engagement. Counselors are using a variety of interventions and activities to create opportunities that support meaningful relationships, again, with adults at school and building a strong sense of belonging. Another goal that the middle school is involved in is reducing the number of office discipline referrals for students who have multiple referrals. So they're taking, again, a look at what kind of data do we have around students that are being sent to the office. Some of those students are being sent multiple times. How can we intervene with those kids and reduce the number of times that they're being sent to the office? So they're creating learning opportunities for students to demonstrate better self-discipline and self-control using interventions like restorative practices. At the high school in 2016-17, the counselors engaged in a number of interventions to reduce the percent of ninth grade students failing a course. Although each ninth grade group is unique, we know that failing freshman year, especially in English and math, can result in future difficulty in passing courses. So previous cohorts had a failure rate of about 8.5%. The counselors took a look at the current group of ninth grade students last year and intervened with them over the course of 2 semesters, building relationships with those individual students, connecting students to opportunities for support, communicating with families, communicating with teachers. Also last year, counselors recognized a gap in the rate of graduation for students with disabilities and implemented a number of interventions with those students, working very closely with special ed teachers, parents, and students to get them to the graduation finish line. And they saw good results with both of those. With our students with disabilities graduating, we had 2 students who entered the 18 to 21 program after completing, and 1 student did not complete. This year, the high school has chosen to continue their focus with ninth grade students, identifying students at risk of failing through regular data collection, working with them to identify barriers, and creating individual plans, teaching strategies for improvement. These are examples of goals and how we use data to drive our work for the best interest of the students and the schools. Just would like to share some pride points that we have had this year and last year. First of all, I'd like to welcome our 2 new counselors at the high school, Mandy Cluck and Amy Ost. They're both very experienced, hardworking. They bring a lot of new ideas and perspectives to the team, so they're a great addition. We really are pleased to have them on our team. Last year, the 4 high school counselors, myself and Mindy Willard at the time, and Diane and Keith presented at the state conference on restorative practices. The session was very popular, and they invited us to come back, present a half-day session, so we'll be doing that next week. Also this year, Mandy Cluck applied for and received a scholarship to attend the conference. We're super proud of the Pathways to Your Future night. Really happy and pleased that many of you were able to come to that, and for the support that the district gave for creating something brand new. It was a little risky for us to try something new, and I think we found we learned a lot and hopefully provided something unique for the community. A couple of other things that we're happy about. On the left-hand side, you'll see a graphic display of graduation from college. These are percent of high school class completing a degree within 6 years. We have some additional data from the National Clearinghouse on our students, but the one that kind of stands out for us is this data point. For the class of 2011, there is improvement over I guess you could say over the course of 2 full years, we've seen the graduation from college rate go up for students completing a degree within 6 years. We know we have work to do in that area with other things, but it's encouraging for us to see that more of our students are completing a degree. And then finally, it's really important to know that our middle school is receiving statewide recognition. This is the document that I passed out, and you have a copy of what's called the WIC-SPAR. It is a recognition of a student data-driven, results-driven program that the middle school counselors have created at the middle school. They have to apply for this recognition. They submit evidence in the fall, and a committee of our peers reviews that according to some strict guidelines. So they will be receiving recognition at the counseling conference next week as well. So just leaving you with a couple of images from the high school, training that counselors and administrators completed with some of our high school student leaders. These students are now mentoring our 9th and 10th grade students during Gold Block, so that all of our 9th and 10th grade students have a student leader who is there to help guide them, provide feedback on some of their work, encourage them to take risks, help them navigate high school. So that training was part of some of the things that we do. So that's a summary of the counseling work in the last year. Questions?
Thanks. Earlier in your discussion, you mentioned that you teach financial planning. What exactly do you teach?
So, thanks for the question. We actually don't have a specific curriculum around financial planning. We provide information about specifically financial aid for students who are pursuing post-secondary education, and provide opportunities for them and connect them to professionals in the community to get that information. I know that the district is moving forward with some ideas around how to provide financial literacy and financial, well, I'm not sure if financial planning is really the word, but financial literacy for students to understand the reality of the costs of higher education and how to make those plans. We currently have a class at the high school called Personal Finance that provides students with activities such as budgeting and credit card awareness, and how to be financially, making good financial decisions in the future. That is what we have currently, but I think there are some considerations going forward around how to provide that for all students.
Okay, thank you.
So first, I think everyone realizes the work that's been done over the past couple of years, and the recognition is fantastic. So thank you for all of your contributions in the room. Secondly, this is going to be kind of a winded question, but the theme, and adhering to what Pleasant View taught us, the theme is, are we doing enough? So with current staffing levels, with numbers of students, with the amount of time that I think it takes to potentially identify a student in need, go back to the theme, are we doing enough? So I know district-wide we relied a lot on staff members, normal classroom teachers, special ed teachers to identify students that have either emotional or social issues, to work through those issues. What are we doing? In person I was able to see Gold Block, for instance, to see the amount of time that a teacher might have for one-on-one time or for additional instruction time, where they have more of a personal relationship. But what areas do we see as development areas? What new ideas are we potentially coming up with to find time to establish that one-on-one relationship, or to be able to identify a student in need? I think at the high school it's probably more apparent, and we've had this discussion before with a counselor that might have 300 or 400 students. We talked about a potential one-on-one meeting over the life of that student in the 4 years. But what are we doing? Or what are we thinking about changing in terms of establishing that relationship, or ensuring that we have a pretty good pulse on what students may need help and what students may not need help, and coaching that student along the way? Because I think if we look at the bigger picture, that's a very time-intensive action for each one of the individuals in the room to have, and to set an expectation that you're going to have a pulse on 300 or 400 students. Is that realistic? Are we doing enough in that instance? So I guess my question to you would be, what additional areas are we thinking of, or are we innovative in potentially to reach a point where we're comfortable at saying that we have a pulse on what's going on with an individual student, class of students, or the like? And I think Gold Block is a fantastic example to say that we've thought of a way to establish a smaller group of students with one teacher, but what other things are we thinking of that might improve that culture or environment? And I don't want to limit it to just the high school, but because I think it's applicable across the district. But what other areas are we thinking of that we can try to improve or innovate in?
I think I can answer that with two ways. One is that there isn't going to be any one thing that's going to get at all of that. So we really have to have layers. We have to have a gold block teacher, for example, at the high school, who is going to be with that student for 4 years potentially, and really get to know that student and be able to notice what's happening. And we also have to have data collection. So opportunities, regular opportunities for us to take a look at and find out what's happening. Who is not attending regularly? Who suddenly is falling off in their grades? Who has been sent to the office multiple times? So we're looking for a number of indicators that would show maybe a dramatic situation. That's really the dramatic situations, and we do that weekly. I can, if anyone wants to jump in and share any additional information, that's a process that school counselors, administrators, school psychs, and social workers engage in weekly in pulling that information and trying to find out who do we need to find out about. And then in the middle, there's a lot of kids in the middle, and sometimes that's an area where the growth really does need to happen, and that's where having multiple people in their lives, building relationships, and having an opportunity to, I guess, assess where those kids are is really important. As far as the school counseling world is, for us, it's about finding what our priorities are and being as efficient with those priorities as we possibly can. So we look continuously at where our values are. So what is it that students need? How can we provide that? Are we taking too much time with that? Do we need to pull back on some of those things, even though they're feel-good opportunities, or we think they're meeting the needs of kids? To think about what else could we do that would really help us to know those students and to have a higher value touch point with them. So an example might be we work with students every year during course selection, and we touch base with every student. It's not a long meeting, but each student has a moment, or probably up to 5 minutes really with their counselor to talk through what is in their schedule and things like that. So we might think about ways to condense some of the work so that those conversations can be not so much about what are you going to take for your 8th credit, but so what are you thinking about for the future, and how are you doing with your plan, and what's getting in your way? You seem to be struggling. So changing some of the priorities and how we use our time.
Thanks.
I think I can add to that each of us works systemically with our building leaders and our teacher leaders to get their input on how we can provide those services as well. So we try really hard not to work in isolation. We are part of the school community, and there's as much information coming in from those folks as we are trying to push out. I think that is important for us.
Question, so how would you, mental health is getting more discussion, and I think there was something in state budget too, funds to establish services within the high school environment, and are kids comfortable in self-identifying and getting the help that they need? Or, because you talk about trying to find those kids, but can they come forth and get the help they need? Are they comfortable with that? What's our climate in terms of that?
Yeah, and I'll speak more from the high school perspective, just because it's what I'm more familiar with currently. But I think at the middle school and the high school, there are venues and opportunities for students to reach out for help. But you're absolutely right. How will we know if we miss some folks without a wider process, and it's part of what we're discussing in the high school systems of support work, and across the board, how do we fishnet and find out about what the needs of students are, either through needs assessments or other ways of finding out their current state. And then in terms of providing services, again, it's about prioritizing which are the needs that are most important, and how can we as counselors support the needs of students at school. And that happens every single day. I think my colleagues would tell you that they work really closely with students who are involved with mental health treatment, communicating with parents, communicating with professionals outside of school, to make sure that students are ready to learn when they're in the building, and if they have difficulties, we have ways for them to receive help in our offices.
The program that, the social emotional development at Forest Park Middle School, the program for the new students, is that being implemented at all grade levels now?
I know that the high school last year did a similar program for students who entered Franklin Public Schools not as ninth graders. So some of our students, and I shouldn't say that, I think it was entered as ninth grade, and then also students who had entered Franklin Public Schools within the last couple of years. So I think the counselors at the high school held a get-to-know-you breakfast, and then followed up with that group of students as a cohort to build connections with them and help them understand the world of Franklin High School, since they were coming from other schools. I don't know if we have implemented a similar program every year or at all of the levels.
I think it's pretty impressive that the counselors saw the need for this. So what do you do? What is involved in the program?
So something that we know is when kids come in, they're sometimes coming from either out of state where things are different, or they're coming in from private schools where things are pretty different, and coming into like a larger group of students and kind of a bigger school. So in the beginning, just trying to get them really like acquainted with our building, the resources there, Chromebooks, how to use some of those types of things, and then just a lot of like community building amongst the group, so that they see that they have some support from each other, making sure they know about different activities and clubs that are available in school, so that they can get involved. And then it was just really like a monthly check-in and different group activities, each time with different focus. And then throughout their time together, we did little surveys, like individually, like to ask them more specifically, like how are things going? Is there anything you want to talk about? And then students who said that they weren't feeling so well, or things weren't going as well as they had hoped, then we individually spoke with those students and kind of worked through different things that they were going through. But a lot of it was just them kind of being together and seeing that there are other people here, and it wasn't just them, and just for some of them finding some friendships and making some connections that way. And then they did different things, like they wrote a letter to their teachers, so that their teachers kind of got to know a little bit about them as well, and they can start to make some of those relationships with some of their teachers too.
I think having a touch point with counselor is really important for those students. They may not have had a counselor at their previous school. They may have a problem and decide, I just need to get out of class now, and I'm going to go to the health room because I don't know how to solve this problem that I'm in. But if I now have a relationship with a counselor, and that person has explained to me, if you have a problem, here's what we can do. You can come and see me, and we can talk this through, and I can help you, and maybe I can talk to your teacher if you're having a problem in class. So that, their ideas about how to solve problems are expanded. That's, I think, part of the result of the work that counselors do.
And did you receive feedback from any students on the Pathways to Your Future night? That they they were impressed with it?
We had feedback from parents and students, and it was difficult to say if it was from parents or students.
Oh, you mean on the sheets that we turned in? Yeah.
It was a generic response, and we didn't get as many responses as we would have liked. That's typical sometimes with programs like that. was helpful. I think one of the things we took away from that feedback was to open it up to everyone. We weren't sure how large this event was going to be, so we had an approach that was, you need to RSVP and let us know you're coming, and then we felt like we were full. So, the idea of, just leaving it open and not worrying about any overcapacity. We ended up not overcapacity, so.
That's very, very good. You did a good job.
Thanks, the entire team did. Yeah, appreciate it. Other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Okay, next is the Early College Credit Program report.
Good evening. The state continues to feel out how it would like high schools to address student access to college-level courses. In the last biennial budget, some changes were made. If you remember, a few years ago, it was just youth options, and then it evolved to youth options and course options. And in this latest biennial budget round, they made the determination that they were going to sunset both the current youth options and course options programs, and so those will end June 30th of this year, and they have replaced them with 3 programs: the Early College Credit Program, the Start College Now program, and then the reinstitution of part-time open enrollment. And so in a little bit, you'll see a couple of policy recommendations. The first one is to eliminate our current youth options, course options policy and replace it with a policy that provides language and administrative rules to support those new programs. Additionally, we've spent a lot of time in the last year talking about all of these different avenues for students to earn dual credit, both high school credit and college credit. And on November 8th, Mr. Bolo and I walked you through the dual enrollment academies for MATC in detail and kind of what those programs are about and why they're important for students to be able to access them. But I felt like it was important for you to see those things alongside each other so that you could see all of the programs that we're offering and really get the full scope of the options that are available to students in terms of earning both high school and college credit. And so in the memo, there was those charts that kind of laid those things out. And so I would welcome your questions tonight just in terms of the new programs as well as the programs that we currently offer, just to make sure that we all have a full understanding of what those are and how they potentially impact our students and our district. And then we'll take a look at the policy, and I would ask for your approval tonight of the new policy language.
Questions?
So the dual enrollment academies, that's outside of the state programs, correct?
Yeah, that was an agreement that we and several other local districts entered into with MATC. And so it's a separate agreement, a separate program outside those state required programs.
That's entirely local decision, local thing that we put together.
Correct.
So we decide who's paying for what locally.
Yes, and we made the decision, and we talked a little bit about this on November 8th. We made the decision to cap it at 18 credits so that it stayed in line with the Early College Credit Program and Start College Now programs, because students could just as easily take advantage of that program and still earn the 18 credits, in terms of our funding that. So we wanted to make sure that there was synergy between those programs, that there was equity between those programs, and so we decided to also cap that at 18 credits.
I had to ask you a question by email. You mentioned there's a grant that's funding that currently?
So there's 2 things I referenced there. One is we have a current student who's in the ChemTech program at MATC, which is technically a dual enrollment academy, but MATC had a grant that paid for that student to attend this year. So that student's attending under that MATC grant. The thing I was referring to in the email, though, was the Act 59 CTE incentive grant is a grant that was put in place a few years ago where students who earn professional credentials, so things like Adobe Photoshop, Microsoft Office certification, their CNA, that those certifications are then sent to DPI, and we get a reimbursement amount of up to $1,000 per student for those credentials that are earned. And so that happens on an annual basis. So in the case of our CNA program, for example, the money that's going out to MATC to pay for those students to attend, the amount we get back from the state currently exceeds the amount that's going out. And so essentially our students that are taking CNA or the nursing assistant program at MATC, that program is self-funded. And in fact, we're recouping a little bit more money than we're paying out for that program.
And that will continue?
That will continue as long as the state continues to fund the grant.
also transcripted credit. You did indicate that that has a sunset on it also.
Yeah, yes and no. The Higher Learning Commission a couple years ago took a look at the state of Wisconsin and looked at all of the college courses that were being taught at the high school level by high school instructors that were considered transcripted, and indicated that they wanted both 4-year and 2-year colleges in the state to hold those teachers to the same credentialing requirements that their own professors hold at the university level. So just to give you some examples of that, for example, in childcare, there's a requirement that a high school teacher who's teaching a childcare course that's equivalent to what's taught at MATC has to have 10,000 hours of field experience as a childcare instructor, plus they have to have a certain amount of industry certifications and or a master's degree in that subject to be able to continue teaching that. And so some of these requirements are just far beyond what we can expect our teachers to do while they're teaching full-time, right? Many of them have master's degrees, but those master's degrees might be in education or ed leadership and not necessarily in the subject area that they're teaching. And so the state recognized they were about to lose all of their transcripted credit course programs, and so they petitioned the Higher Learning Commission for a 5-year extension, which was granted. But at the end of that extension, as it's currently worded, the high school teachers need to be up to that credentialing level or they're going to pull those transcripted credit courses. So we're continuing to work with MATC and our local universities to say, all right, we know this is coming, what are we going to do about it? And how do we potentially address this down the road? Because we like the arrangement as it currently stands. It's our instructor, it's their curriculum, and it's a benefit to the students because at the end of the day, they get both high school and college credit. So we're looking at some creative ways we might be able to address that, and working through some of that now. We don't have a solution at this point, but luckily we have 4 more years to continue to work through that.
I mean, they could just take these classes at MATC, right? That's that simple.
Yeah, they could. Again, you look at the number.
Under the state programs, which is the Start College Now, right?
They could. You look at the volume of courses, though, and students that are currently involved in those courses. The benefit to us right now is we're not paying for those, other than we're paying for the teacher, the faculty members teaching those courses. So we're not paying tuition dollars out for that.
But isn't these programs student-driven? Now, we don't get to decide, do we? Students will decide. They can decide, I can take this class here, I can go to MATC, and you can pay for it.
They do. I think a lot of our students enjoy the added course options that are available to them here, as well as the opportunity to go off campus if they want to. So they do decide. But I think just from a sheer cost standpoint, the more courses we can offer on campus, the better off we're going to be long term.
Well, I would agree, but it looks like we're moving away from that. We're moving to kids, let's go, get started on school.
I think we're looking at all available avenues to be able to provide those post-secondary credit options for kids. Some on campus or some off campus.
So with regard to that transcripted credit then, that may end up going away if an agreement isn't made. Am I looking at this column right? So some of the child development courses and all the stuff in this column here,
Yep.
those are the ones that would be affected by that?
Yeah, that's correct.
A lot of them. There's a lot of kids in the problem.
We can still, just to be clear, we can still offer those courses, right? There are courses, so we can continue to offer them. Students just wouldn't be eligible for transcripted credit for taking them. So we can continue to run those courses here, they just won't get college credit.
So are you making the distinction between those as an AP course with credit, or is that what you're talking about?
So these courses, for example, the accounting course, even though it's MATC's curriculum, it's still our course, because it's in our course catalog, it's approved by the board.
Right.
So if the transcripted credit piece of that goes away, we're still going to offer that accounting course. Students just won't be eligible for that college credit at that point.
So is that course they're taking like AP accounting, and then there's a test at the end, and they get, this not an advanced placement, this is different.
Yeah, this is different. This is MATC's curriculum. So they complete MATC's curriculum, and then MATC says, all right, you completed our curriculum. The teacher currently is credentialed at the same level as our credentialing agency says they need to be.
Okay.
Therefore, we'll give you a transcript from MATC with that course listed on it with the number of college credits that it's equivalent to.
And the CAP program that I see on here, that's not part of that potential.
It is, yeah,
It is
CAP
part of
is.
this.
Yeah, UW Oshkosh and Whitewater are working through some similar things because it's the same expectation. In fact, in CAP Spanish, the high school teachers need to have a master's in Spanish to be able to continue that level of teaching from a credentialing standpoint. So
That'd be too bad if all that went away.
Any other questions? Thank you. on to item 8, school board liaison reports, 8A personnel and policy report, policy 6470, youth and course options action item. Mr. Lewis.
So this is a new topic tonight, I guess. I'll pass this over to Nick, but hopefully everyone had a chance to review the basically replacement of policy 6470 with 6480.
So we have to eliminate
Correct.
one first.
Correct.
You want to do that first?
We can, or I can leave it up to Nick to discuss first.
Okay.
It's up to you. What do you think might be the...
Yeah, I'm happy to just talk through maybe both of them in combination and
Go for it.
take consecutive action items there. Obviously, 6470 has become irrelevant, right, with the sunset of the program, so there's a need to eliminate that. In terms of 6480, the language you're going to notice is very similar. The current statute under both the Early College Credit Program and Start College Now program does not limit the number of credits that a student can take under that program, but it does allow local districts under policy to limit that to no lower than 18 credits. So we can set that limit at 18 credits. We could set it higher if we wanted to, but we're choosing to set it at 18. So that's kind of the early part of the policy that you're seeing. Beyond that, there also is language in statute that allows districts to recoup money for students who don't successfully complete a course that they were approved for, but that language also needs to be in policy for us to be able to recoup those dollars. So the policy really is fairly basic, right? It lays out those couple pieces, and then everything in the administrative rules addresses really the statutory requirements and deadlines needed to meet that program.
Talk about the administrative rules for 1 second. And I think the statutes are just a mess on this with all these chapters and everything. And which, if you look at the Start Now, it talks about the eligibility and you have to be in good academic standing and not a child at risk and all that. Why don't you have, do you know why you don't have to have all that for the early college credit? I mean,
yeah. So the Start College Now program, they kept a lot of the original youth options language that was applied to technical colleges and left that as is, and then wrote brand new statute for the early college credit program. So what you're seeing there is a combination of old existing language they chose not to touch, and then new language that they wrote into statute for that secondary program. So that's why you're seeing differences in those requirements.
which, yeah, I just think it's really confusing, and that's why when you were just talking about this previously, and Linda said you could just continue, well, I don't know, it's just confusing to me. I mean, just listing all these statutes inside here and stuff, and then at the bottom, the legal reference is only listed as, you know, one statute there. Not that anybody's really going to look it up, but it's just, it's all listed through here, and it just doesn't make sense. But, okay,
What doesn't make sense?
I'm fine with it.
The references to the statutes?
Yeah, because all the way through here, there are all different ones are chapters and things are all referenced, but only the legal reference at the bottom references one chapter. And,
Yeah, the other, I think the thought process was that those other statutes all extend off 118.55, which is why that was the only one that was referenced.
Yeah, because this specific chapter 38.12 doesn't have to do with a lot, but
Did you say
that,
that the
that's
legal
okay.
reference should be limited to section 118.55 and not cite a specific chapter?
I don't know if I'm saying that, because to me, it was just really confusing, so I thought maybe Nick knew, but I don't know.
Well, if you think about, like, specifically where it talks about it, that you referenced under Start College Now, 1A3, where it says pupil is not a child at risk as defined in 118.153 sub 1. So that is actually referenced in the higher level of 118.55, referencing child at risk, which then is defined in a separate area of the Wisconsin statute. So the policy itself referencing 118.55, I think, is accurate. It's the section of the state statute that refers to early college credit program and Start College Now. The separate subcategories of legal references in the administrative rules provide that additional level of guidance for the administration of the program, which to me at least makes sense. If we look big picture, we don't approve the administrative rules. That's just guidance for the district and administration in handling the application of the policy itself. So generally, if we look at 11855 as the governing statute for the two programs as referenced in policy, I'm perfectly fine with using that as the legal reference. When we reference the separate statutes, and that's the 11833, 118-151-1, the 36, I can't find it right now, that you referenced, Janet, I think it's an application of the policy is the sections of the statutes that's required for those sections.
Well, what was confusing to me was the 11855 was only early college credit program. That's how I saw it.
Yeah.
And not Start Now at all.
The Chapter 3812 is the reference for the Start College Now program, because it's that existing
Okay.
language under that old section. So they didn't create a new section for that. That's
Okay.
the reference back to that old section.
Okay, I see. All right.
One minor thing to point out is the administrative rules references policy 6470 and the policy 6480.
Yep, we'll get it adjusted. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
So when they submit their request, they have to indicate whether it's post-secondary only or high school, I don't know, for high school credit? Are we going, will we see somebody that just post-secondary only?
I can't envision a circumstance where that would be the case, but ultimately they could decide, I don't want high school credit for this, I just want college credit for it. I can't envision a scenario where a student would want that, but they could. Under statute, it's their decision.
And they're still defining what a comparable class is, right? That's still in play, right? If we have a comparable class?
So right now, we're operating under our own guidelines for equivalent course, which is essentially course title and/or a review of the content. DPI has told us that they're undergoing an internal review right now of what a comparable course is, and they're going to put out some specific guidelines for districts around this is how you measure a comparable course. At that point, we'll put that language into the administrative rules so that that's the criteria we're using. But until DPI releases that guidance, we're going off our old model of comparable course.
Are they seeing issues with that statewide? Is that
I think they just want to build some consistency, because right now, every district has to determine on their own what a comparable course is. So they're wanting to put out some consistent guidelines so that every district is vetting those courses the same way.
And this will be effective for March 1st, just around the corner?
Yep.
Okay, so should we
All right.
eliminate first?
Yep, let's do that. So I'll make a motion to eliminate policy 6470.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Lewis and a second by Mrs. Larson to eliminate policy 6470. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, then we'll make a motion to adopt with edits as suggested, policy 6480.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Mrs. Larson to adopt policy 6480 with edits as suggested. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say, did you have a?
What were the edits?
It was the removal in the administrative rules. It's
Oh, the 6470?
Yeah.
Oh.
Just a
that
number,
you brought
so.
up
Yep.
Originally, but Mr. Nielsen too. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8B, board liaison reports. Any liaison reports? Just really quickly, I attended Country Dale's PTO meeting last night. I think I've said it before because I've attended. They have a really strong PTO, a lot of support from teachers and parents, and their next large event will be a carnival, first week of March. And then Friday, I'll be participating in a listening group during the day as part of a 5th grade writing and skill building exercise at Country Dale. And then last week, I don't know if this is liaison. I don't know where to put some of these things sometimes when we just visit schools. I'll just say it. I visited science fair at, that's really a school visit. I visited a science fair at Robinwood last week. It was in the evening. They had over 80 entries from grades kindergarten through 6, including individual and group entries, and the students did research and made presentations to judges who were from MSOE and Betty Bryn. And if you can picture kindergartners doing real science fair projects and presentations to real judges, it was really something. I mean, you have about 86 projects with real science fair experiments, and these little kindergartners, first graders, second graders, just doing real presentations. It was fantastic.
What was the coolest topic? Or somebody was making
I mean,
solar cell or
someone made a laser that was better than buying a laser out of an Altoid box, and I was like, don't point that anywhere. It was really strong. And like a little kindergartner cut up all different kind of apples and to see how many seeds are in apples, different. A Golden Delicious has 15 seeds. They have the most seeds, if you ever want to know. Making rainbows out of prisms, and somebody made ice creams. It's just everything you can think of. If you figure 86 different topics, and some were group projects, it was fantastic. And I think this was their third one. Does either of you know? Third science fair? It was great. I've never been to that one before, so it was a good job. And then any other? Okay.
So all of our schools don't have science fairs?
I think I saw another school's having one coming up. Ben Franklin's having one coming up next month.
Okay.
That's your school.
It is, I know.
Item 8C is school visits, so I just did one. Yeah, that was my school visit. Anyone else? I have one more. On Monday, and I heard others of you were going to go. I don't know if you went to Forest Park Middle School. I think, Val, you went, didn't you? Yeah. So I went on Monday.
Google thing.
Yeah. Google Expeditions was there. I know Judy told us about it. And they did augmented reality using phones and on selfie sticks. And so they took the students on tours to coral reefs and solar system and World War II, and so it was like 3D objects, but you could really take them apart and move them around. Little crustaceans and
with a phone. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it was really something. You'd see like this big octopus, and the kids would go, "Whoa!" It was really nice, and it was a beta version, so some of the teachers are just trying to figure out what they could do with it if they ever got it. But if you can check out the science fair and this Forest Park Middle School on the from the 12th on the district website, so it's really interesting. Do you want to say anything about it?
No, that was a great description. They got super excited over certain things, and you could just hear them get, But you really did just put the device to the QR code and came to life.
But take a look. It's pretty interesting. Okay. School board meeting debriefing. Anything?
I learned a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's a debriefing. Now Megan has to write down. We debriefed the meeting. Okay. Future agenda items. Food service report, February 28th.
Is it going to be food?
Just a report.
She's read Dunkers.
District 4K program discussion on February 28th. The 2018-19 preliminary budget information, March 14th. Any comment, Linda?
I'm just excited. It's on.
Oh, you're excited.
Around
Okay.
again.
Human Resources Report, Health Insurance and Employee Wellness Update, March 14th. Anything else? Okay, then looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, I'm gonna give that one
Don't
to
jump at
Debbie.
the don't jump at the chance.
Motion by Mrs. Larson, and was that Ellen? Second by Mr. Alexandrovich. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 7:39. Thank you.
So moved.